Welcome to the land of the legendary, Roosevelt, Strong Island, New York.
Hi, I'm Harris Haith, here in my hometown of Roosevelt, New York, down at Centennial Park for the documentary Land of the Legendary, Roosevelt, Long Island. And we're here at Roosevelt Park where all the historical hardcore battles are fought during the summer. All of the pros come down here during the summer to engage in basketball competitions. Just like at the Harlem Rucker and some of the other tournaments that they have around New York. So this is an important place in the founding of the town of Roosevelt, and so we wanted to start here. So today we have Dr. Buyatire, Professor Buyatire, David Buyatire. Well, soon to be doctor. I'm so proud of him. That's going to explain to us the history of Roosevelt from its inception. So David, if you could just kind of explain.
I think from its inception is going a little far back, but we'll say from the from the 20th century.
Okay. We'll go back to the Vikings. Okay.
But Roosevelt, you know, for many people, you know, we look at Roosevelt as always kind of being a black community.
Right.
Initially, at the turn of the century, it was largely Polish, Italian, and I think at one point there was also a large population of Jewish citizens also here in Roosevelt.
Wow.
You know, as economic trends changed and I guess the Great Migration occurred,
right.
Many African Americans, you know, would migrate to New York City.
Mm-hmm.
But Long Island became a very appealing community because it was largely rural communities,
right.
and many of the things, you know, that was being provided and made here were things that African Americans were familiar with.
Right.
Therefore, it made it an easy transition for them to move from, you know, large urban centers towards, you know, the East End, because this was literally as far east as most people would go. In fact, during the 1920s and 30s, in addition to African Americans, those same immigrant populations came here to do such things as grow potatoes, pumpkins, sheep, you know, raising sheep and cows.
Yeah.
A lot of things that you wouldn't necessarily think of Roosevelt or the Hempstead community.
Right.
But as a consequence of the Great Migration, Roosevelt as well as Hempstead had a huge political block and influence on the rest of Long Island. In fact, in 1938, just simply because of the population, 50% of the overall population was located in Hempstead, in which Roosevelt was actually a hamlet of at that particular time. So when you think of it, you know, that political influence was basically half of Nassau County. In fact, if it wasn't a law that didn't force them to include the vote of another person on the board, they would have the majority vote for any legislation that would have passed.
Wow.
And that's why, you know, when we think about, you know, segregation, and we did think about de facto segregation or de jure segregation, there's no doubt that, you know, the way Roosevelt became black was because of de jure segregation. It was something that was planned. Really, when you think about Roosevelt now and the way that the community looks, partly it was because African Americans were isolated to this particular community.
Right.
1930s, 40s, You know, you had agreements, you know, made among county officials that allowed the lots on Roosevelt to be reduced to smaller sizes, you know, than most in the rest of the county. You had block busting, where a lot of those Jewish, Italian, and Polish members of the community were pushed out because they didn't want to reside next to African Americans. But at the same time, as a consequence of segregation, you had a lot of doctors, you know, you had a lot of teachers who chose this particular community and created a strong economic base for a black cultural revolution. And to create a stable community that, you know, in many ways reflects the same as the Harlem Renaissance would in Harlem, or the economic boom that occurred in Hempstead during the same period. I think that what really hurt Roosevelt was partially the money that was taken out of the community as a consequence of them focusing on building apartments rather than homes for African Americans. Also, all of the subsidies they gave to developers who came into Roosevelt, giving them 10-year tax-free, you know, benefits, which then hurt the school district. At one point, Hempstead School District was the high school for Roosevelt. And when you think that Hempstead had more apartments than any other place on Long Island, that tells you where the tax base went.
Exactly. It's the same concept basically as the ghetto. It's kind of like a colony, you know, where you can control what goes in and what comes out.
Well, truthfully, the term ghetto just means overpopulated. So when you think about it, yes, you know, Roosevelt, you know, in the 1960s was turned into a ghetto. And then a great deal of this economic base was taken out to basically police a community that was supposedly, you know, looked at as inherently crime-filled simply because African Americans were in that community. But I think that the great part about Roosevelt is also those outliers. When you have people like Eddie Murphy coming out of Roosevelt, when you have people like Dr. J coming out of Roosevelt, that, you know, African Americans have proven, you know, time and time again, a cultural resilience. The idea that we find positives out of a lot of negatives. You know, that we always look at Roosevelt or look at our community as a stakeholder in a greater national narrative.
Absolutely. And when we look at even the formula of the Constitution, where black people were not even really part of the Constitution because they didn't see us as being free at that time. When they were the mindset of the Constitution at that time was not that they were going to see us as free people. And so, you know, when we became free, then, you know, they had all of the types of oppressions in place in terms of education, lack of education, and so forth. And just like you said, still we rise. And so really that's why we're doing this documentary today, is to pinpoint that Roosevelt is a place that while looked at from the outside world as a small black community, has generated Public Enemy, Chuck D, like you said, Julius Erving, Eddie and Charlie Murphy, Steve White. You know, it's a litany. It's Howard Stern. Absolutely.
Not just about, you know, and I think that that's where a lot of people become very confused when you think about American culture. You know, they try to imagine African American culture as a totally separate experience. You know, when American culture is very much, you know, a blend of a very much an African American influence. That popular culture in America is African American culture in so many different ways.
And we're just so happy to have you here today to explain from a historical perspective where Roosevelt emanated from, and so that we can kind of piece it all together to show what it is now. So we just want to thank you very much for being a part of it, and we hope to hear more from you. I know that you're going for your doctorate. When a person reaches the heights that you've reached in terms of going for your doctorate and so forth, we as a people need to embrace that and to acknowledge that. So I just wanted to say I'm very proud of you for where you've ascended in education and the contributions you made to the community. I know that you were the executive director of the African American Library in Hempstead, or the museum actually in Hempstead, and you just do so much to give back to the community, and I just want to thank you for that.
One of the things I'd like to say is, that education is very much an important part of the African American narrative. Right. When we think about, all the things that, we have attempted to do in the past, it's partly because we, valued, understanding our world. And in Roosevelt, I think that every community goes through a transition.
Right.
But ultimately, knowing, what you want to do with your life helps you to subscribe to a path, right, in which you can find a meaningful outcome.
That's right.
Education is simply a tool to assure that that outcome is going to be respected by others. So my path is just an extension of my life and my commitment to my community, and thank you very much for the acknowledgement.
Thank you.
Incredibly, the list of enormous success stories from Roosevelt seem to keep growing and growing, with people who have made national and world news, like former NBA referee Lee Jones, tennis pioneer and advocate Emily Moore, and General George Jones. There are also notable figures who adopted Roosevelt as their home, such as NBA Hall of Famer Nate "Tiny" Archibald, Grammy Award-winning jazz drummer Roy Haynes, and former Harlem Globetrotters Pablo and Walter Robinson.
When you know historically the people who were here before you and that they were able to come out of this community successful, it maybe gives you some idea that you could do it as well. But I mean, we have, John Mackey, who was, revolutionized the tight end position, came from Roosevelt, played football at Hempstead High School. Ken Chenault, who's the chairman of American Express, played with Julius Erving on Don Ryan's teams. He lived down the street. I lived with my grandmother during my high school years during the week, but Ken lived down the street from us. So that, Eddie Murphy and Public Enemy and, on and on, all these guys all grew up right, around us. So we would see this kind of stuff as you get older and say, well, there is a chance to be successful. There are people who come out of this area and do well. Whenever there's an opportunity to talk to young kids or students about my career path and as a guy who always dreamed of playing in the NBA but wasn't good enough to play in the NBA, to be in a position that I'm in, I talk about how I did it, what I did to try to set myself up to be in this position. So that's what I do with when I talk to younger people or college students. And then on the other side, what the benefit I have from growing up here is that I can have a conversation like I did last night with Carmelo Anthony about his sort of position on the sort of African American community and athletes taking a stand on something. I grew up in those same kind of communities, so I could help talk to him about different ideas that he can use his platform and his celebrity to try and move a cause forward. So I try to, use what I learned growing up in Roosevelt and Hempstead to talk to our players and talk to athletes about the power of their celebrity and how they can utilize that to help, move issues or people or things forward. So that's how I try to, do what I think I'm supposed to do in the position that I have, other than trying to win basketball games. But, I just feel thankful and blessed that I grew up in this area, and I want to try to continue to sort of live my life in a way that always let people know this is where I started. This is where, who I am as a person. That foundation was generated and is based on growing up in Roosevelt. And so every success that I've had or I hope to continue to have in my career all stems back to growing up here. And I just hopefully can live my life in a way that kids can say, well, there are people who grew up here, that had some level of success that hopefully I can do the same thing. So for me, that's the most important, hopefully, outcome of this show, or how I like to carry myself moving forward. And as I sort of try to tell my story or whatever, is that it all stems from deciding I want to be better than anybody else at what I do. There's, I never, when I go into a meeting, I tell people all the time that you will never, ever meet with me and say that he wasn't as prepared as anybody else in the room, or he wasn't ready for this meeting. I carry myself in a way that the one thing I know is that will never happen. When I come out here, a lot of times for me, it's easier to start from where we are today and move backwards in terms of the impact that my dad and uncle had on this community. Because I came out last year to see my mom, and it was a warm day, and I said, well, let me go by the high school to see the court, the basketball court. The basketball court's named after my dad. And because the football stadium is named after my uncle as well, usually it's wintertime when I'm out here, so I never get a chance to go to the football stadium. So it was an opportunity for me to go in the gym and see my dad's name there, and go out on a football field and see my uncle's name there. And that's when it sort of really hit me about, how important these two men were to everybody in our community as we were growing up. I mean, and you talk about the youth center. I mean, I can remember sort of just their commitment to trying to help build an environment for people to grow in and not have to worry about what was going on around them. I mean, the youth center was started, it was really an old convenience store. And I remember us going into this convenience store, I think on the corner of Franklin Street, and cleaning it out. We're going in the basement and we're taking stuff out, and we're painting walls. And I don't know how old I was 10 or 9 or something like that, and going in there with them. And then all of a sudden, this place is sort of transformed into, a ping pong table and a bumper pool table and a pool table, but it was a place where everybody could go and we could just hang out and know that we weren't going to have any problems, or just learn to be responsible people. And my dad and uncle and the other guys, Ernie Knight and the guys that were involved in helping them start this, were just committed to creating sort of a safe haven and a safe environment for us to grow up in. There were a couple of things that I think happened. They were so focused on education. They were either two of the first African-American teachers in Nassau County, or definitely at Hempstead High School. So they reflected the community, they cared about education, and they were honest with people. And I think that mattered to all the people around us growing up. I mean, my father, one story I remember vividly about my dad is that he had an opportunity. He was playing in a Nassau County championship game. It was his first opportunity to win a Nassau County championship. And his best player, a guy named Al Williams, who was an All-American basketball player, was at a party the night before, and a fight broke out. And my father suspended him from the team. He lost all of his scholarships. They didn't win the championship game. And at my father's funeral, Al Williams paid tribute to my father, as that was the most important thing that anyone's ever done for him, to make him responsible. So those kinds of actions, I think, resonated with all of us growing up. And so you cared about what they thought. You cared about what they wanted you to do, and the path that they were trying to at least push us down, or give us an opportunity to walk down. I think those things mattered and influenced a lot of people in our area. I don't want it to seem like they were all goody two-shoes either, because Selena's dad had a little street in him. He knew how to get stuff done. We were trying to play. They started the Pop Warner football program in Hempstead, and all of us wanted to play. And you had these other communities that had long history of the programs, and when it came time for us to have, you had to have a doctor's report to say it was okay for you to play on the team. And a lot of the kids didn't really have doctors. We didn't have people we went to. Uncle Charlie was in his kitchen, bring the guys in. Yeah. He'd fill some name on there. He was the doctor. Yeah. But he was doing what he had to do to give all these kids an opportunity to get out on the football field and play. So he was a realist in terms of wanting to get things done. Well, just by being around the kinds of people I grew up with, and not just my mom and my dad and my brother and cousins, just everyone I grew up playing ball with in Roosevelt or Freeport or Hempstead, just understanding that there were a lot of us trying to be successful, but also taking advantage of every opportunity that was presented to you. And sometimes those were hard choices. Like, I made a decision to go to a private high school instead of going to play for my dad in Hempstead or go to school in Roosevelt. That was something my parents thought was important to me because it would afford me the best opportunities from an educational standpoint. I think what I'd like to see us happen now is that I think we need to do a better job of finding young people to take the mantle and take the leadership of pushing these programs and these opportunities forward. I mean, we have a guy, Don Ryan is here, and Don's an interesting example because Don coached me. He coached the Hempstead Salvation Army, now the Dons, the Hempstead Dons, I think is your new name for your team, Don. But, when I was 10, I played for Don Ryan. And an opportunity, but he's still at the helm of his program. So that program, the consistency and leadership is still there. We need to find young people to take over the mantleship to help move these things forward.
Friends, family here, so many people who are members of this community and members of the neighboring communities. What a wonderful opportunity. It's raining, but it ain't raining on the parade. To be here on the block that I lived on from age 13 to age 21, which is a very formative time in your life. When you're learning about just about everything you need to know to take the next step in life. I learned while I was living on this block right here. And to be here again makes me think about my mom, who's passed on, and my stepfather, and my sister Alexis, and my brother Marvin. We moved on this block from over in Hempstead in 1963, and here we are in 2013. And I'm standing here and I'm humbly, first and foremost, representing them.
All right. God bless you. All right. God bless you, bro.
Because the name on the street is going to be mine, but I wouldn't have it if it wasn't for them.
That's right.
My mother and father gave it to me. I guess they lent it to me. So now I'm lending it to Roosevelt.
Oh, man. Take your time, man. Take your time.
Hopefully it's going to be treated well.
Oh, yeah.
A lot went into making this day happen. And talking to Doug Thomas, he's been working on it for about 4 years. So to be standing here today and not be on the other side of the grass and to have this happen, while you're alive, while you can receive it and while you can accept it, means that the right time for it is now. It wasn't necessary for it to happen 4 years ago.
We agree.
Or 14 years ago, or 24 years ago. The time is now. And for all you good people to come out today, to brave the weather, just to be a part of this very short but momentous occasion, to have the really, really young kids give the Pledge of Allegiance, something I used to do every day when I went to school. I went farther than the Pledge of Allegiance. We had a school creed when I was over at Prospect School over in Hempstead. And then we had Roosevelt, our alma mater. I guess the next thing that's appropriate for me, other than thanking family, is to, thank friends. And I look out in the audience, I see, Ben Simmons behind me, and Quintus Brower and Eddie Kennedy hanging out over there. And who else do I see? We got Chuck D. Y'all know Chuck D's. He was the next generation of Rough Riders. Oh man. Yeah. We got Mr. Smith, Mr. Phil Smith. I want to acknowledge him a little bit because I want him to represent Earl Mosley and Chuck McElwain and Ray Wilson. Because that was the fourth guy who ran with them, and those three probably were, other than my mother and my stepfather, the most instrumental people in my life in Roosevelt. At my right, and he's been at my right since I was, well, I've been at his right or his left forever. We got Don Ryan. And Don, man, I don't know what my life would be without Don. Because Don taught me a lot about basketball, but he taught me more about values in life, you know, about sacrifice, about being charitable, being benevolent, being philanthropic, you know, just being a good person. And if you're going to make errors in life, and hey, God knows I made a lot of errors in life, you know, err on the side of trying to at least do the right thing. You know, things you try to do don't always work out. But try to do things anyway. You know, don't be a couch potato. You know, you guys don't know how many nights I've dreamed of just walking up and down Nassau Road, the street formerly known as Nassau Road. You know, I mean, literally walking in and out, weaving, bobbing, or whatever, just trying to get to this destination right here. And I don't know why so many times, you know, Roosevelt and Nassau Road and the Rough Riders tradition, the people who I grew up with just come into my life. I mean, while I'm laying down just trying to relax, they just come and pay me a visit.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I never went to see a psychic about it. I just trusted that was just normal. You know, if you come from somewhere, that's your home. And if that's your home, they have a right to come and visit. So you need to visit too. So hopefully I can be a more frequent face around here, have a greater presence in terms of, you know, the social, the mental, emotional, the economic development of this community, my home community. You know, we were a little stubborn when they started talking about renaming the street. I said, well, what's going to be on the street? You know, broken down buildings, dilapidated houses, or whatever. You know, I'm like, I don't want to have any of that. If you're going to put my name on the street, then the township and the county and the state need to do the now to be mentioned public-private partnership that's necessary to make this one of the best avenues in Nassau County, in Long Island, in New York State. And I think we all rise up when that happens. So I'm going to play my role. I'm going to play my part. And I thank you for the day from the bottom of my heart. God bless you.
Here on my block that I grew up on in Roosevelt, New York. And my house is right over there, 16 Cottage Place. And it just brings back so many memories. One of my neighbors that I haven't seen since I was a little kid just came out and exchanged greetings with me. So I feel right at home more than ever. But growing up in this house right here, actually, Eddie and Charlie Murphy grew up on the block right behind me in Berkeley Place. And so we used to just jump over my back fence and go back and forth to his house. So this block has a lot of sentimental value to me growing up. And right around the corner, we had Carolyn Harding, that lives right around on East Raymond right here. And Chuck D over there, we're going to hear from them a little bit later on. But I just wanted to come back here and show you guys the street that I grew up on that's been so dear to me. Hi, I'm Harris Haith, back here on Cottage Place in my hometown of Roosevelt, New York, with two of my childhood friends, longtime friends, Clint Smith and Carolyn Harding. And we just wanted to get you guys out here today to talk about the documentary Land of the Legendary. You know, this is about all of us that have ascended into places that we can now reach back and inspire our youth. You know, especially in this age of we having people being shot down in the street for nothing. We just want to make sure that the youth knows that, you know, they can ascend from this place, that even though it's a small area, a small town, they can get found here if they prepare themselves and they're ready for the opportunity. So just want to ask you guys, you know, what was your experiences growing up in Roosevelt? Just, you know, to get where you are today, you know, what were the experiences that you had?
Well, you know, we used to hang out. Hung out with Ed. Ed's my best friend. Mitch Kaiser. And we would, you know, I mean, since we were junior high school, you know, we were like the Little Rascals. We put on a show. You know, we was always doing, putting together little troops. I remember we had a group called EMMK.
Yeah, I remember that.
Where we had a band. I would MC, Eddie and Mitch would do stand-up. Carolyn was in the group.
Yeah, I was supposed to sing, but somehow that never really got to happen. So I had to figure out how to go solo.
But yeah, you know, all that, we just, you know, I never thought anything would come of the show business thing. You know, we was just having fun. And, you know, it's a crazy world.
Exactly, exactly.
So, Ed always thought he was going to be the biggest star. He's like, I'm going to be bigger than the Beatles. I was like, yeah, okay, I just want a job.
Exactly.
Yeah, but you know, it happens.
Carolyn, tell us a little about you know, when we grew up on East Raymond, we used to be in your backyard. You know, we used to get thrown out of her backyard like every night because she had a basketball court in the backyard, and they used to let us play basketball. But you know, just tell us a little bit about, you know, what you've been through. I know that you even worked for Disney for a little while.
Yeah. And, Disney was my first gig out of high school.
Wow.
You know, outside of going to school for theater. I never even finished my first year. I just went straight to Disney World.
Wow.
Pretty much graduated from Disney University.
Okay.
101.
Okay.
Set me up for whatever I had coming next in the music world, and you know, pretty much laid the foundation of professionalism and you know, how to conduct myself in the studio, on stage, or you know, whatever the case may be. So it was a blessing, and still going, you know. I'll never retire.
Absolutely. Well, you know, that really shows when you have, what we call in the business a natural. When you're a natural, people pick up on that. And that's another thing that we want to, you know, impart in the youth, is that you could be a natural and somebody can see you and actually give you an opportunity just because they recognize that raw potential that you have. Because to be picked up by Disney with no training or whatever shows the raw ability that she had that was recognized by Disney. So what are some things you did in Disney? I mean, did you play characters?
No, I was me. I was me. I was the first live show at the Tomorrowland Terrace inside the Magic Kingdom, which was the largest fast food restaurant in the world at the time. Before me, they had an electronic synthesized show, but I was the first live vocalist there, you know, in that room.
Wow.
And I might have been the last regular. You know, I don't know, but we clocked some hours there.
Well, you said the president. You know, and it's really inspiring for me because I never knew, you know, we all just branched out and we're doing a lot of different things. I mean, I was in contact with Clint because we were on tour and stuff like that with Ed, but you know, I never knew exactly what you did at Disney. I just heard about it. And I used to be like, wow, I was at Disney working or whatever. But, you know, it was just great to hear that, you know. And, you know, we've all, Clint played in case anybody is like, where's that guy from? Well, I seen that guy before. Clint was in 48 Hours in the cell with Eddie in the singing scene when Eddie was in jail. So if y'all remember that scene, that was Clint Smith in the jail cell with Eddie Murphy. And so he was in a few more.
I prefer talking about my scene and coming to America.
A little bit more dignified, right? A little bit more
when
dignified.
I played one of the old barbers.
Exactly.
And I'm doing a movie with Eddie in August. So,
okay.
A new one called Soul. As long as I'm doing plugs, Carol and I are collaborating on a project for her. Because I saw that movie with that HBO with Audra McDonald. What was it called? The Billie Holiday one.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, we should do something like that.
Absolutely.
So that's what's in the canon right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, I was in Airplane too.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, you know.
I got a few little credits.
Exactly. But, you know, absolutely represented Roosevelt to the fullest. And, you know, everybody was so proud of that, you know, and still to this day, you know. Coming from an area like Roosevelt and looking out on the world, you know, you never think that you can do some of these things until you actually get there, you know.
Right.
And then, you know, it's just really just a part of who we were once we got there. You know, we just acted who we were. Just like you said, you were just who you were. And that was the inspiring part. I remember when I used to jump the fence and go over to Eddie's house when he lived on Berkeley.
That's right.
And we used to sit in the basement and imitate TV shows. You remember that?
Richard Pryor.
Yeah, Richard, everything. You just write up TV
Al
shows,
Green,
imitate.
yeah.
Exactly, you know.
Sanford
And
Sons, yeah.
exactly, you know. And never really thinking that it would go anywhere, but that's just who we were. That's
Right.
what we loved to do. It was a passion
Yeah.
that we loved. And, you know, it turned out to be something great. So, you know, again, I want to thank you guys for stopping by, and Roosevelt is in progress, as y'all see, but I want to thank you guys for stopping by, you know, so much, and you know, being on this documentary, because it means a lot. You know, we having our youth shot down in the street for no reason at all, unarmed, you know, and our youth need hope. They need to see that some of us care enough to reach back and say, listen, you know, this is what I did, you can do it too.
Right.
You know.
And it's not all about entertainment.
Absolutely.
I say that.
Yeah.
That's right.
Roosevelt has some of everybody.
That's right.
You know.
That's right.
Great doctors,
Doctors.
scientists.
That's right. That's
Absolutely.
right.
Environmental science.
Absolutely.
You know, one of the top, you know.
Absolutely.
Pat.
Yeah. Pat Barnes. He's
Pat Barnes.
Yeah. He was a part of a congressional caucus for environmental science with Obama. I mean, I might not even have all the verbiage correct, but I mean, look him up. You know,
Right.
there's so much coming out of Roosevelt.
Jamie McPherson and Steve Chisholm.
Yeah.
I think one of them. One's a brain surgeon.
Yeah.
The other one's
Yeah. Someone that, I think he was the chairman or something like that of American Express.
Yeah.
You know,
Incredible.
so yeah, it's
Yeah.
like I can't remember the gentleman's name, and I should.
Ken Chenault, right?
Ken Chenault? Okay, yeah, to be able to point to these people and say, you know what, you have an opportunity to do this if you prepare yourself. And that's what we're trying to really instill in the youth is education is the key.
That's it.
You know, we have an African-American president in the White House, even though his term is up. You know, you can't go more than 2 terms, but his term is up. But
Things
you know,
can happen.
Exactly. But, you know, if you want to be a rapper, you know, take it off of the street corner and into the boardroom. Go get a education, you know, first. Go get a degree, a literary degree, you know, and then be a rapper, because education is the key to whatever you want to do. And so, you know, and that makes you prepared for any opportunity.
Right.
That's
So
right.
we just want to instill that and put that out there for anybody that might be watching, that, you know, no matter where you come from, you could do it too. I just want to ask you guys, is there anything else that you wanted to impart to, you know, everybody that's watching about your experiences?
Clint has something coming out.
I just did a show called The Business, and it's over at Stars.
Okay.
We're waiting to see if we make the schedule, so keep your fingers crossed, pray for me and all that. So.
Absolutely.
And I wanted to just toss in there a little tidbit about Roosevelt. Something that we had as a youth. We had karate.
Absolutely.
We had the Black Belt Union,
Absolutely.
and our sensei was Erskine Matthews.
Absolutely.
And
you're a black belt, right? Might be like 3 or 4 times.
one was enough. But while on that subject, I wanted to just say that was our outlet,
Right.
and it was a place where we went to learn respect for elders, a thing that, you know, a lot of the youth nowadays are just kind of missing, and nobody wants to pick up the torch and carry that. It could have a lot to do with a lot of things that are happening right now. We had karate. We had a place that we went daily.
Right.
people were concerned enough about us to help us learn respect for elders, just self-respect, self-control, you know, and I think that's so important. You know, I don't want to date the situation here, but the other night when the thing happened in Dallas, the police chief there says, you know what, you know, you don't have to protest out in the street. You can protest by picking up an application and joining the force. You know what I'm saying? And just being a part of the community on another level. I think it would be a major thing to encourage today.
Absolutely.
You know, not just to fight, but to just know yourself and know self-respect and know respect for others.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. And then you respect society.
Absolutely. You can go into any arena.
Absolutely.
You know, while we're on this subject at Disney, you know, our group was the only one like us. You know, and a lot of places I go in the world, I'm the only one like me.
Yeah, that was the shocking thing about it. That at that point, you know, in show business, you know, as we know it, that when someone said someone was at Disney like us, then you had to really like, oh, really?
Yeah.
Because, you know, obviously we live in a land that's, you know, full of oppression.
Right.
And so really that's so important, Carolyn, because that's what we're trying to get the youth to see, is that we know that we're being oppressed. We understand that, but don't use that as an excuse.
Right.
Because a lot of people fall on that as a crutch. Oh, you know, there's no hope. I'm just going to go out and get some weed. I'm going to get some this. I'm going to get some that. And they just throw their lives away. Right. And then, you know, they use it as a crutch, that the oppression is a crutch. Prepare yourself and know that you can ascend to anything that you want to, as long as you're ready for that opportunity when it comes. And that was so important. I'm glad that you brought that up. And the main factor is to know how to carry yourself in society.
In any group. Exactly. Our president can walk into any room and just, you know, chill with whatever level he's with.
Whoever.
You know, like my dad said, be bilingual.
Exactly.
You can talk hip hop and you can talk boardroom. You know, I mean, it's just a way to be.
There's a saying that we're born into this world knowing how to do wrong, and you know, we have to have our elders to teach us how to do right. And so, you know, the same thing applies there, is that we know the streets, you know, let's know etiquette, let's be educated so we know both sides of the coin, and we can be effective in the things that we do in business and in life.
That's right.
So again, thank you so much. I appreciate it so much.
God bless, and good luck with everything.
Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you.
Peace.
I'm here with a longtime resident. As a matter of fact, his family came from here long before he was even born. And so we have Don Cramell here to tell us more about Roosevelt from his perspective growing up in Roosevelt.
Right. And again, you know, Roosevelt pretty much is, you know, my life. Worked in the Roosevelt School District for 35 years. Graduated in 1972. I've seen the growth and the negativity, and then now I see the pride coming back with our youth and some of the things that are instituted, and this is a great tool for us to tell our own story.
We were just talking about the importance of education as far as moving forward from this experience, and how important that is, and that, you know, we wanted to dispel rumors that, you know, a lot of people think that, oh, I'm from a small town, you know, in Roosevelt, New York, and, you know, I'll never be discovered or seen or whatever, but, you know, that's why we're doing this documentary, to point out that people have been found on and risen to legendary status from Roosevelt. You know, as we talked about, once again, Dr. J and Steve Mills, and even Doug Mills, his brother, was drafted by the Atlanta Hawks. You know, and you know, the list goes on. And we just wanted to hear from you based on the transition of Roosevelt from what it was, you know, when your parents, what you observed when your parents were actually younger and you were a small kid, as to now. You know, the difference in the community. What are the differences that you see as far as education?
Well, going back to the beginning, Roosevelt was a very segregated village. On the other side of Babylon Turnpike, if you were a person of color, that's where you had to live. This side of Roosevelt was almost like taboo to be on this side of town. Centennial School, which is right down the street, was a predominantly all-white school. UB, where you guys are going to go visit, was predominantly all black. Same school, different setups, brand new books, not brand new books, new projects, old projects. So my parents and other parents in the village took the school district to court. Oh, wow. And they were the ones who forced integration. The integration was forced upon by a judge. Oh, wow. And so that was the flight of the white flight, right, with the Jewish community. Mm-hmm. So even though I was living close to Theodore Roosevelt or UB, I was bused or had to go to Washington Rose, which is right around the corner, which had a population of maybe 80% Jewish, maybe 5% white and 5% black, right, to try to balance it off. Right. And you know, parents with fear, something new, there was a mass exodus. If you notice, you know, Roosevelt Park area was predominantly the Jewish area. In fact, the Roosevelt Youth Center, if you look at the building, it's a Jewish synagogue. So that was pretty much where it was going. But going further, as we talk in the future, I happen to use the format of Ollie Mills because I was a football coach, basketball coach, and the word student athlete was always prominent in what he was always trying to get across. Absolutely. So kids today have accepted that. In fact, my girls program has a 99% graduation rate.
That's wonderful.
We just, you know, one of the girls is now the head coach at Howard University. That's wonderful. We have a young lady who's an engineer at NASA who graduated from Stony Brook with a 4.0. So these are the small subplots that you don't really hear about. Absolutely. You know, obviously we're proud of Dr. J. Absolutely. We're proud of Chuck D. Absolutely. But there's some young people here doing some fantastic things. Absolutely. And we're just very proud of them. Absolutely.
We're venturing out on a venture and moving into the tech space with Harris 8 Productions, and we started a company that's called Global Fan Draft. Okay. And Global Fan Draft is going to allow sports teams and entities to officially draft fans and recognize them for the first time in history as part of their franchises and organizations. And there's going to be all-star fan teams and fan of the week, fan of the month, fan of the year. So officially recognizing fans for the first time. So the first application comes out on July 25th in a couple of weeks. And I'm working with Steve Mills as an advisor, the GM of the Knicks. We also have A. Douglas Thomas is the executive director of business development for the company. And so this is something obviously that's going to be going in perpetuity because fans never quit. And so, you know, we're looking at this as something that, and it's projected to be one of the biggest businesses in history because the business model is that all the fans have to come to our website to see the results. So we're talking basketball, football, hockey, soccer. We're doing the World Cup. We're doing music. We're doing superheroes. We're doing the NCAA. So you know, there's a litany of things that we're doing. We have 17 apps right now in design, and the first one is coming out, as I said, on July 25th. And so that's the best sorority and fraternity challenge. That's our test app, which will be on the market. It'll actually be a product. So, you know, we wanted to, yes, thank you. We wanted to make that known because what we're trying to do is we're trying to create jobs and opportunities for people and to give them an incentive to be educated. You know, you have to be educated to be in the tech space. Sure. You know, this is not, you know, the industrial age where you can go learn a trade at the trade school, and people need to understand that. And so that's what we're trying to facilitate, is that people will go and, you know, get these degrees in computer science science and, you know, coding and all of these things, and then come and work for us. Sure. So, you know, it's a wonderful thing for you to come out here and to let us know from your perspective what's, you know, where you've been in Roosevelt and where Roosevelt has come from. I thank you so much for your contribution, you know, over the years to the communities, you know, not just Roosevelt but Hempstead and, you know, the surrounding, because we're all really one, you know, we're really one. Lakeview, Freeport, Roosevelt, Hempstead, Westbury, Uniondale, we're all really one. We all know each other, we all played against each other for years, and so, you know, we have a close-knit in terms of where we come from. We all kind of claim each other. And so, is there anything from a historical perspective that you like to, you know, tell us about that we might have overlooked?
Well, absolutely. Something that just happened over the past maybe 2 or 3 months. The discussion, you know, Roosevelt School District has been one of the first takeovers, state takeovers. And I think 2 months ago, right, all 5 schools, all 3 elementary schools, the middle school and the high school was in good standing form for the first time in school history.
Wow.
So we're talking about going back, I'm a 1972 grad, maybe about 30 years.
Wow.
And so that is the new commitment that what you're talking about, that we're all talking about. And not just Roosevelt, we want Hempstead, we want Uniondale, we want Westbury, we want to give kids an opportunity to have a fair and equal education.
That's right.
So that they can do the jobs that you're going to have, that you're going to be looking for people.
Absolutely.
Well, people got to be able to be qualified to do that.
Absolutely, that's a big part of it. Absolutely, a big
Yeah.
part of this documentary is so that the youth knows that they can ascend from here, that they can, this is a small place and, you know, it might seem obscure, but you can, you know, you can do your thing and you can be anybody that you want to be. And we're not just talking about who came from here, but we also want to know that we're looking to provide opportunities. Absolutely. I just want to thank you for your contribution to the community, because it's been significant, and I want to thank you. Thank you for your time. Here in my hometown of Roosevelt, New York, right in front of the historic home of Chuck D of Public Enemy. And I had the pleasure of recently working in the Terradome studio, which is located right there in that garage. So all of the hits that you guys love from Public Enemy were conceived and pretty much recorded right there in that garage right there, and they call that the Terradome studio. And so wanted to come by here and show you guys the nostalgia, the history of Roosevelt. This is right down the street from my home on East Clinton Avenue off of Cottage Place in Roosevelt. And we just came from Eddie Murphy's house on Berkeley Place. So we're just chronologizing all of the houses in the area that shows how close we were encompassed in terms of proximity to each other in the town of Roosevelt. And so I'm really happy to be here today. It's a beautiful day. I said it was going to rain, but you know, yet we still have beautiful sunshine, and I'm so happy to be here. So again, you know, this is where all of the Public Enemy concepts were conceived. With the founders and the co-founders of Keith Shockley and Hank Shockley. And you know, you're looking at history right here. You know, a lot of people don't understand that big things come from small beginnings. You know, so you're looking at, you know, from this humble beginning right here, you're talking about people that are known around the world, you know, on a global basis. Their persona has reached all over the world. And so just so glad to be standing here and be able to let you guys see where a piece of history was made. Land of the legendary, Roosevelt, Long Island. How more appropriate could it be to have a legend, Mr. Chuck D, with us here?
I wore this right here a month because both of y'all is pretty nasty on the court. Nice basketball players. These two guys, backcourt 1 and 2, trying not to pass the ball to each other.
worked it out, right, Doug?
We worked it out. Me, I was on the sideline trying to be Marv Albert.
What you just said is so ironic because the last time that we were with Steve Mills, I made the same joke when we played together in the Summer League. He could not stop laughing. Because you know how it is. You play organized ball all season long with your college team or whatever, and then when you get in the Summer League, it's like, I want to try new stuff. I'm shooting the ball, you know, because coach is making me pass every time I catch it in the game.
Yeah, but you point guard, and every time you come down to the key, man, you do all this and then this and this, and everybody's like, Doug.
Yeah. For a while it was like that, and then I had an epiphany, and I was like, dude, you're supposed to pass the ball.
To this other shooting guy.
Yeah, well, you know, sooner or later we got around to the assist when we found out we was going to be sitting on the bench in school, and we didn't. So it worked out. But, you know, Chuck, we just wanted to come and talk to you today about, you know, our hometown of Roosevelt. We all grew up together. I grew up right down the street, you know. I mean, that's how condensed the area is we live in. Yeah. And it's so funny because, you know, did you ever think that all of the people, all of the talent that came out of Roosevelt would come out of when we were growing up? Did you know?
Well, we knew some diamonds would come out of the frictional rough because we knew that Roosevelt was a case example for white flight. Right. So it might have been like 30% black in 67, 50% black in 69, 85% black in 72. So you know, not 90, right? So we knew that everybody that was coming in from different parts, especially the city. Right. And automatically it was like, well, you know, I just got here from Brooklyn, and we'd be like, I got here from Queens, or I got from uptown, you know. And so everybody's looking at. So out of that pressure, we all came together in Roosevelt and eventually became Roosevelt as a sum of different parts. You know, cats in Queens was like, you know, I'm from Queens. Right, Or my family might have moved from Harlem, or, you know, in Harlem, he was from Harlem. Exactly. Or from down south. Right. You know, and all these areas were kind of like, they had their mainstays. But Roosevelt got together like poof and was like this big nuclear reaction chain effect. And I remember, you know, a young Julius Erving, you know, coming from the high school, you know, and then going to UMass, you know, and just read about that. So we knew that just the combinations that was happening out here were uniquely different. That's why I always used to have like fights on the lawn. It was like, and you know, for what reasons, you know, as a shorty, you really didn't know, but you know, you had people coming together from different parts of everywhere, especially from the city, now living amongst each other. So the competition was high.
They called us the country.
Y'all live out the country. Everybody that came out here had their own cousins going to the country. I mean, before we moved out here, and that was only from like where JFK is at. We're like, we going to the country. Right? And after 15 minutes, we're like, we here. Like, okay.
Exactly. Remember they used to call Queens the country? They used to say, yo, Queens is the island too. You know, that's how far it's come.
My family is from Harlem, so everything's this country. You could be like, I don't care. I mean,
anything south of Harlem is country.
Anything south, northwest, east is country. So from that point, the Bronx was country to them. So, you know, coming out here, it's
just
like,
imagine if that was country, how country Brooklyn was.
Exactly.
Brooklyn was a planet.
Exactly.
It still is.
Exactly.
It's its own planet. But you know, the thing about Roosevelt, you know, we all came from these different parts. So the competition was high. It was almost like, all right, we look like each other, but really, seriously, I'm gonna try to top you.
Absolutely.
Eddie and Charlie, and you know, on the street, you know.
We used to have contests. Me, Charlie, and Eddie used to have contests on, you know, who could imitate people the best. And I remember we used to do you remember Commander McBride? The cartoon Commander McBride? We used to do the cartoon with the guy, the old English colonel, and he spin the globe, you know, and he just put his finger someplace and be like, it was there. It was on the coast of Africa.
Well, that's what my music and touring career has always been. It's like I'm an earthisson. I've been in 106 countries, and I'm always like, I live in 3 places at the same time and in the air. So now you say, oh, Commander McBride, that's turning to me. But you know what? The center point is developed.
Exactly, no question.
And there's this big pine tree that's right here in the backyard that really speaks to me. I've written all my, you know, great songs here, and that pine tree, you know, talks to me.
I was just telling the youngin a little while ago, the Dewan's son, I was just telling him that this is history right here. This is like where all of the Public Enemy music was conceived, where the ideas were conceived, where you guys put everything together.
Well, not really. It's over like Mrs. Boxley. So really on the other side, you know, of town, the south side, where Flavor's on Madison and Hank on Madison and Griff on Jefferson and you know, Butch Oliver on Jefferson. So that little area, they always had something.
I just meant y'all came here.
Oh yeah. No, later on. That was post Spectrum, post Public Enemy. This is where I grew up.
Exactly.
And this is where I was raised.
I always like in this place too what Rudy Van Gelder did over in New Jersey.
Oh yeah.
You know, speaking of Rudy Van Gelder, who just passed recently, and this is like that type of iconic place where you see the gold and the platinum albums on the wall, you see the memorabilia, and you realize that, you know, essentially this is very historical, almost in the sense of a museum.
Exactly. We're very proud, you know, the fact that you guys got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Congratulations on that. Absolutely. I never got a chance to congratulate you.
Oh no, you don't have to do that.
No, but I do.
No,
because you know why? Because you know what, Chuck?
We're a group of the same, all the guys.
I know, but still,
us is like congratulate yourself.
Absolutely, but you know, I just wanted to say it because it made me feel good. You know, the type of accomplishments that were made. You know, we always want to, you know, give credit where credit is due to inspire people, to let them know that, you know, you can do some good things and that people recognize the good things. Because we got a handle where it's like, you know, everything that comes out about us basically is bad. You know, somebody got locked up, somebody did this, somebody did that. So I just wanted to give credit to the fact that where you ascended, you know, I'm proud of. And, you know, I just wanted to ask you too, you know, why do you think that, I mean, we were talking to a historian, David Bataya, and he was saying that Hempstead and Roosevelt were like, you know, one at one time. And so that's why we had John Mackey that's from Hempstead and Roosevelt. I'm basically from Hempstead and Roosevelt. Me and Doc was talking about that one day. We were laughing and talking about we're from Hempstead and Roosevelt. But, you know, I want to say...
41 line.
Exactly. Because, the people, before Roosevelt High School was in existence, everybody from Roosevelt went to Hempstead. And so, but I just wanted to ask you, you know, what do you think, why do you think this area had so much talent, was able to cultivate so much talent? Was it a competition, you think?
It was a competition, people all moving here, having to deal with each other from different parts. I mean, Doug could attest, it's also zoning. When, you know, when white folks sold their cribs, and this was the area that black folks moved into, that started like this chain effect that connected Roosevelt to Hempstead, which already kind of like had it going on, and then Uniondale started to become more black, and then Baldwin eventually. So it started. You know, I mean, unfortunately, there is apartheid in the United States. It's like, you know, this fear of a black planet thing goes kind of like deep, like, you know, I don't know a lot about y'all, but I know one thing: if too many of y'all move near me, I'm moving out. That type of thing going on. That's the Long Island mantra, you know. So it's a little different, and it's changed a bit, because even as an adult, I freak when I come to Long Island. I go to places I never would have thought about before. I break that mentality of having to do Roosevelt, Freeport, Hempstead. You know, back in the day, you did that, and you didn't go to a restaurant in Merrick. You know what I'm saying?
That's true.
I mean, you might have dipped over in the McDonald's over there and then dipped back, or you didn't go in like to Rockville Center. Today, young people, man, they be like, yo, I'm going out to like Smithtown. You know what I'm saying? You know,
friend of mine, and we all know him, stand-up comedian Steve White. He has a bit that he does, and he goes, you know, I'm from Roosevelt, and I live right next door over the bridge from Merrick. He says, you want to know what Merrick means in Native American? And the crowd goes, yeah, tell us. It means too close to the niggas.
Wow, you sound funnier doing Steve than Steve does Steve.
You know, but, you know, I remember when we were little, when I was living in Hempstead, you know, this is when I was maybe about 8, 9 years old, and we went out for trick-or-treating, right? So we went, you know, trick-or-treating or whatever, you're not thinking about it, and we wandered a little bit too far, and we went into Garden City. And the police, like, came, Chuck, and like, you know, go back.
Yeah.
They got out the car and told us to go back. It was the first time that I ever experienced the real, element of racism. That like it hit me like, wow, I'm not good enough to come here, and I live in America.
Well, what people are experiencing now and trying to say, take the veil off and talk about Black Lives Matter. We always knew Nassau County, Ralph Queso, what's the colors? Red, orange, and blue. You know what? Stop when I say, stop or I'll shoot. All that was like understood in the core. And fathers told their sons, and uncles told their sons, and fathers told other, sons. It's like, this is the rules. This is who you are.
Absolutely. And
don't get it twisted.
Absolutely.
You in a spot where really seriously you're a piece of meat to the police patrol that goes on.
Right. Tell them about the stories when you used to be walking to Adelphi.
Yeah, Adelphi. I went to Adelphi 78 to 84. So of course I got to catch the N40, or N41 coming from Mineola down. So you got to walk from Adelphi to Franklin.
Right.
Or better yet, they had a shuttle bus later on to take you from Adelphi down to the apartments and the old bus terminal. But if you didn't catch that, then you got to walk to the N40, 41 and probably catch the last two buses, right? Because buses do stop in Long
Exactly.
At least they did, right?
They sure do.
I am coming out of class, black dude, 18, 19, 20 years old, but I got a portfolio about this big. I ain't got a machine gun in this thing. I got a big old little art portfolio. And so, it's like one of those things. So, yeah. But the thing is, we knew how to, back in the day, we were schooled enough by older heads how to go and look at racism and then play off of it and not be always a victim based on, like, for example, today they might call it, they might throw the P word for having an attitude when somebody pull you to the side. But we had it understood. It's like, number one, call them sir, take the bass out your voice. If they pull you over, your life is important. Because this dude is really he's nervous and he's really trained to shoot in his county. So we already had a rule boom, boom, boom. Let's get up out of here and get on back into Hempstead anyway. So it didn't mean that we were punking out or nothing like that.
Absolutely.
That they was about their thing, and we knew we were outnumbered, and we knew that there was a behavior thing.
Absolutely.
Today, I think the important thing is that you gotta have old heads talk to younger people. Fathers, if they disconnected from their sons, somebody gotta be that rhyme or that voice of reason to say, look, this is the deal. It ain't what you think. This is what it is.
Exactly. That's right.
And that's what we had back in the day.
That's right.
We had I know you. There was no ulterior motive for an old head. My pops, right? There was no ulterior motive for them to appease you, or they wasn't trying to be, oh yeah, your father looked young, they didn't care about all that. It was like, oh, he trying to get this money. Nah, it was like, you know what? They told you, they drilled you, and they said, yo, all right, now do your thing and get up out of my way.
It came down to also sometimes just a matter of common sense and realizing that there are times in life when discretion is the better part of valor. And I have seen young folk just swell up on the po-po. You don't have no wins.
You'll get, no wins, and you'll get deflated real quick. And this is the mantra that's going across the states. And you gotta have OGs, and you gotta have fearless OGs to tell truth. Because the truth will break everybody down.
Absolutely.
But you know what? If you're afraid to talk to them, if you trying to impress them by thinking you one of them just because you put some of that, they put it, they blacken up, they
Grecian formula.
Get their head shaved and blacken it up and be up in the club at 45 and
at 60. At 60.
Still like the bomb.
Speeding for the new Jordans.
What your name is?
I think they closed down Burgundies, right?
You're gonna have a young cat looking at you like, yo, you not giving me the jewels I need in order for me. So when I'm gonna be an OG 25 years from now, if I got a picture to be that, you're not giving it to me.
Exactly.
So that's what we try to convey in the music that we did. That's what we try to convey in training artists and all that stuff like that. Sports, fortunately, has coaches that kind of put people in check. And the music and entertainment, they don't have it. They don't have it. You got older heads that's trying to compete with people 20 years younger, and that's what's twisted. You know, that's the city mentality that permeated into the business.
Exactly, and I just want to tell them this. I'll be remiss if I didn't say this to you, and I have to. Is that because this is in the same line of things that we're talking about. You know, one of the things that I'm so proud of you about is the fact that you spoke up about racism and about our people at a time when Public Enemy was ascending. You guys were getting all of this fame, and you put, you know, your career in jeopardy for us. You know, it wasn't, and you made it clear that it wasn't just about you know the records. You know, because we have a lot of people that will say things, but you actually put your career to. And that's the way we looked at it.
We didn't look at it in jeopardy. Look, we always knew we came from the Veld. We from Long Island, right? We know who we are. We know our friends. And if we gain nothing out there, we good.
Exactly.
It's like,
we needed to hear that from you, though. You know why? Because everybody today wants to acclimate themselves to fame. And so you got to understand that there's a price to pay for everything in the entertainment business. There's a price to pay for everything that you do.
And it's non-stop work.
Exactly. It's non-stop work. And, you could wind up selling your soul if you're not careful. And that's the part that I'm, so thankful for you for, is that, you didn't look at it like, oh, I got to get this money. We got to, be the #1 group of all time, whatever. You guys are like, forget that. We're true to what our music is. And if that, if we get cut off or whatever for what we're saying, and there were repercussions. I remember that, the sponsors, the advertisers, those things are important. And moreover, that's why you see a lot of our black leaders that aren't effective. Because, they get endorsement deals, they get sponsorship deals, and then they're afraid to say certain things based on losing, what they have. But you put yourself in the line of fire, for the black community, worldwide. That's why you're respected around the world, because people understand that, you're not a person that's saying, well, I got mine, I'm getting mine, and then, so what, the rest of it. It's like you really stepped out for every black person to say, listen, this is wrong, what's going on, regardless as to what you're giving me, with how much money I'm making from you, or what kind of business we're doing. It has nothing to do with the ethics of the fact that racism is wrong, and we want to put that out there on a personal note. It was aside from, like, Public Enemy is a brand, but outside of the brand, you came out as a person and said, I'm not standing for this, this isn't right. And we need so much more of that, man. It's kind of like the 49ers QB who came out, he didn't want to stand for the national anthem. And everybody's like, oh, this and that and the other thing. But what he actually showed is that, there's somebody willing to use their voice to bring attention to something that really needs to be spoken on.
Well, that's the energy, like young DeJuan's age, that's about how old the quarterback is, and they got something to say and should be encouraged.
Exactly.
And at the age of 56, I feel I can walk from Roosevelt to Belmore now.
Depending on what time of day it is. But one of the things that I also want to piggyback on, as to what Harris was saying, is that even early on in the career of Carlton Douglas right now and Public Enemy, you took a stand not just against racism and bigotry, but you took a stance against the power structure of the music industry.
Absolutely.
Well, every damn day.
Absolutely.
And you still are vehement about how they have bastardized hip hop and rap, and how the true meaning and what it used to mean to be a b-boy and all that stuff have gotten lost.
People put in the time. Heroes put in the time here in Roosevelt to put hip hop together and make sure, the party's right. Hank Boxley made it possible for me to come along and be involved. Keith Shockley, and this is his studio. Mrs. Boxley, all the time that she, took out Danny Markham, Bobby LaRock, all the stuff we did at Spectrum. Then all our competition and our peers, and also the people that came to the parties, and Mark and all those guys, And on Long Island, it was very important that everybody look at each other competition, but as well as like we're trying to provide something in people's time and space. You
Positive alternative.
A place to go to. You know, at you 20 years old and the colleges are closed up in the summer, and you know, and everything else is trying to not have you come to Jones Beach and all that. So where do the black people go? Where do the black, you know, teenagers go? Where do the black young adolescent adult go? And, you know, between 18 and 25. So we tried to make something just to have something happen, because it wasn't just going to just happen automatically.
Well, like Harris said before, I mean, who would have thunk it? Who knew that 30 years ago, 35 years ago, sitting in the Roosevelt Youth Center with a simulated radio station, WRYC, would evolve into all of this international renowned notice? Who could have even hazarded a guess on something like that?
We have no control of how time evolves. Things happen out of the seed and they sprout to something where you can't tell where the branches will go. You know, you got to nurture and water it, and then wherever, you know, happens to bear fruit, you got to also treat that, you know, with respect. So the reason we all say give thanks, because, you know, none of this, you know, man plans, God laughs.
Yeah, that's right.
And that was the title of our
I love that song.
But that was the title of our last album, the Public Enemy album. But that title also came from the Julius Erving documentary that I was fortunate to do the voiceover for.
Right, absolutely. Absolutely.
I said, okay, that's
I hear that you just finished working on a Spencer Haywood thing.
Yeah, Spencer Haywood documentary. We put out a soundtrack. You know how heroic he was, like the Kurt Flood of basketball, as well as becoming a Knick. I know you guys know what Spencer Haywood came to.
Spencer the Air Condenser. That was his name. Spencer the Air Condenser.
You know, building with Spencer and all. I enjoy like hooking up with all our heroes, or maybe even some of our parents. You know, people like just did this project with Gene Barge, who's 90 now, and also Gary U.S. Bonds.
Right. Oh, that's my boy.
Yeah, we did a song together. Oh, okay. We did a remake of Quarter to Three.
You guys got inducted into the Long Island.
Wow.
That's when I first met Gary U.S. Bonds.
Wow. Yeah, I'll send you guys the video. We'll show it on the video right on here. But, you know, meeting our heroes and people we grew up with. Because back in the day, music in the house, of course, meant chores. Do chores in there. And my mom was playing music and don't touch that turkey. Don't touch, especially if it come down and the last record come down and never change.
You wake up and you hear Dinah Washington. This bitter earth, you know it's time to go brush your teeth, wash your face, and get to cleaning.
Yep. Saturday afternoon, do the chores, and that music is okay from Aretha to, you know, Odetta, to, you know, and also
Checker. It was just a litany.
The beautiful thing about the rock and roll induction was historically they try to always get a young head to induct you because they're trying to sell HBO TV show. So I fought that we had one of our heroes induct us, and that was Mr. B, Harry Belafonte.
Wow.
And then of course our homeboy Spike. So Spike and Harry Belafonte.
Wow.
Were you guys the first hip-hop group to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Grandmaster Flash and Furious 5, rightfully so, 2007. Run DMC number 2, 2009. Me and LL brought in Beastie Boys, which was MCA, who passed away not too long after that, but also the other two Beastie Boys. So, and this year was NWA. So it's five groups. They're using groups, because now hip hop means individuals, but groups is the thing that shaped the world of rock.
The other question, Black Magic. Did you do the documentary Black Magic?
No, I didn't do the documentary.
I thought that was your voice.
No, I don't know who it was.
I thought that was you.
I did Bernie and Ernie.
Oh, okay, right, Bernie. That was great.
Oh, yeah.
I've done quite a few of them, you know. But when it comes down to people I respect as I grew up on, I'd be tossing it for free. All right, go ahead, you got the voice. So I knock it out in 2 days.
That's what you're known for, you know. Yeah. That's why there's so much love, bro. You know, really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us and share history, you know, old times, you know, because we don't get a chance to stand around and talk like this, you know. I think the first time I saw Chuck in like maybe 25 or 30 years was when at the Do the Right Thing anniversary.
In Brooklyn. Yeah,
I hadn't seen we were like, because we hadn't seen each other in so long. So I just want to thank you, and special thanks to A. Douglas Thomas here.
So that means when you guys are on the court again, you're gonna pass each other the ball, right?
Maybe. This guy, he like to back people down.
I want to thank you as well, and I want to, I didn't get a chance, but I want to give you condolences on the passing of Mr. R, because he was my man.
Yeah, right.
He used to drop jewels and pearls on me all the time.
But the true thing is like they say, he's in here, he's in here, he's in me. So, and then of course my dad was very clear about the passage and all that. So even just like 2 weeks before, everybody gonna go to the same place. So I don't care who you are, what you say you got, and all that. We all go to the same place. And he's like, he said, and you ain't no spring chicken yourself, so take care of yourself. That's what he told.
Hey,
that's just real, right?
Exactly. I think that's the element that made you who you are, is the realness. I know
no
that.
Question.
And we as the black community, we appreciate that so much in a world that's fake. People say, they put out things now, Chuck, but they say it's free. And then they got like me a little tiny print, that the ant can't even read. So we respect you for being real, and keeping it real all of these years.
You want to keep it really real? I'm doing some waxing on the floor. You can draw it up.
Wow.
He really does do that stuff too. He really does do that stuff.
One day to clean up in the end.
Well, you know what? Appreciate you so much, man. Love you. You know that?
My man.
All right. Yep.
Absolutely. Chuck D. Public Enemy Hall of Fame.
Number one.
So the next time you think about the Empire State of New York, remember the land of the legendary Roosevelt, Strong Island.
Your face, baby, clear across the room. I made my move near you to see what you would do. You turn me on, baby, and I just wanna dance with you. Baby, come on, I like good music, and I see you like it too. Let's hit the dance floor, so I can dance with you. The beat is bumping. And all I really wanna do is dance. Come on with you. Oh, baby, let's get the floor. I wanna dance with you. I wanna know you more. I wanna see you move. Girl, I wanna see you move. I wanna dance with you. Baby, step in. I wanna dance with you. Give me the chance. Find romance. Girl, I wanna see you move. I wanna dance with you. Ooh, come on. Tell me what's your name. Glad to meet you. And I won't be the same if you don't dance with me. 'Cause you make my body just wanna move. See you, you turn me on. What you all about? I wanna hug you, baby, and be the one that takes care of you. Dance with me. I wanna dance with you, baby. Dance with you, baby. Let's get the floor. I wanna dance with you. I wanna know you more. I wanna see you move. Girl, I wanna see you move. I wanna dance with you. Step in.